Firstly, thanks to everybody for joining us, both our panelists, who I will introduce shortly, and everybody else on the Zoom today. So this is a Wavelength presented panel, first of a series, I believe, that will be coming during this interesting time for the music industry that we're having right now. This panel is called How to Release an Album During a Pandemic, produced and hosted by Wavelength Music. Wavelength's just a little information, our nonprofit organization supporting emerging artists and talent across a diversity of genres, based in Toronto, but feature artists from all across the country as well as outside of the country at times. You can check them out at wavelengthmusic.ca, and they're celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. So, you know, an interesting year to celebrate, but they'll be bringing you some interesting online stuff throughout the year, and leading into their festival, which will come in February of 2021. We're going to have a panel up until around 7 o'clock, and then we'll have a Q&A opportunity for about 25 minutes just after 7. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. Feel free to ask a question, but do keep them clean and without hateful comments or disrespectful language, please. And on that note, we will go into the description of the panel. COVID-19 pandemic has thrown out all the traditional rules in music promotion, especially when it comes to releasing what can be looked at as the artist defining moment in terms of an album. Or it could be a big single in the case of some artists. Going on tour obviously isn't a possibility right now. So we're going to talk about and focus in this panel is seeing alternate ways of getting traction and eyes and ears on new music and new albums, and you know, make sure that sales keep coming, and because that's obviously the sole means of income right now, with a lot of other things shut down in person. Yeah, and then we'll try to cover this through various different various topics. We'll see what we can get through over the next hour, and at that point, I'll introduce our panelists. So we have got DijahSB, who is a friend and artist that's been coming up over the years through shows that I've put on. Dijah is a Toronto-based rapper who navigates synth through booming bass claps and smoothed out production look easy. She's definitely an old school style artist, but over new school type approach and production, which is something great to see. This past summer, Dijah released their debut album 2020, and in the eyes of Wavelength and myself, it's one of the better hip hop records of the year coming out of Toronto. So we got Dijah. Dijah can be followed at DijahSB.com. Secondly, we have Dina Young, the founder of Miller & Smith Management, an artist management label services and consulting based company in Toronto. Since 2018, she's been general manager at Royal Mountain Records, an indie label whose roster includes Always, Dizzy, Doom Squad, Ellis, Colorado, and Mets, as well as many others. And you can find them online at royalmountainrecords.com. And thirdly, originally from South Florida, now residing in Toronto, we have Harrison Bennett, label manager of DeadBeats Records, and an artist manager at 2+2 Management, the brainchild artist Zed Dead. The DeadBeats label has released music by a range of EDM artists, including Grizz, Subtronics, Peekaboo, EPROM, 1788L, and Moody Good, and you can find them at deadbeatsofficial.com. And without delay, we will get into the questions. Again, if you have questions for the Q&A, please drop them in the Q&A box and not in the chat, please. So first question is going to focus on answers from all three of you, if you have answers, and then we'll move into specific questions for each panelist. So the first question, just in general, what was your immediate response to the pandemic back in March, in terms of planned releases or putting music out, or even operating life like it usually is, potentially? Was it an emergency? Did you want to try to give up, or was it full speed ahead? So why don't we start with Dijah?
Yeah. Hey guys. Basically, by the grace of God, I already had several singles that I was actually trying to put together to make an album, right? And once the pandemic hit, I already had the idea to actually release one track a month to kind of create sort of like a lot of hype around like just the releases and just to continue to be consistent. So it actually just worked out for me that that was already my plan, and that I already had 7 or 8 tracks just sitting in my email ready to be released. And then after the pandemic, I recorded 2 more songs to add, and then I put it all together as an album. So I guess it really just worked out for me in the end, because I was already preparing to kind of release something that would have been consistent, but then I didn't really have to go anywhere or do anything different because I already had all of those tracks made and ready and mixed and mastered to be able to be released. So my reaction to the pandemic was actually not a negative one at all, because all I really did was stay at home and release my music and promote it and stuff like that. So it worked out pretty well for me.
So it's pretty much going ahead with what the plan was already.
Yeah, basically.
And probably have more attention now because there's a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Sucks that a lot of performances got canceled, but we've been making do with like online and Zoom and Instagram Live and stuff like that.
Okay, great. Harrison, what about on your end with DeadBeats?
We didn't actually like have to shuffle around anything on our calendar, thankfully. We did have a number of items laid out and planned. We do weekly or 2 releases a week at this point right now. So we ended up having an album come out about 3 weeks into March or so. So about a week or so after everything shut down. But on the release side of things, everything kind of stayed relatively the same. Our outlook was, well, more people are going to be kind of in front of a screen or consumed with their phone than normal, possibly. So, might as well just kind of ride that out. Definitely saw like weird changes in listening consumption and how that kind of worked. But to be honest, like the focus like right then was more of a logistical touring issue where we had artists on the road in Europe at the beginning of March, and we were worried about them getting stuck over there with the borders closing. And then on the like kind of like upcoming, we had a number of shows that we then were scrambling to find out what was going on, send out messaging to fans, and then kind of just figure out what the heck to do from there. So that was that was the experience.
Nice. And yeah, we'll when we do your individual question, you can tell us about the finer points of gaining more traction online. I think you'll have some valuable points for people. And Dina, what about with you?
Yeah, sort of the same as both the others. I think at the time we didn't know how long the whole thing was going to last. So I sort of, there's a panic. We also had artists over in Europe, or I had a band I managed. Dizzy was over there, had to get them back. So that was a bit of a stress. But outside of that, it was kind of like, we sort of just marched forward with the releases we had planned. I think as it started to carry on longer, I mean, our release schedule really has stayed the same. Like most people have, even bands who needed to tour have decided to put out records. But yeah, I think as it sort of continued to go on, it was more focused on just kind of how can we fill the space if there's no tours happening. So I think there was a lot of discussions with that around bands. Because normally, in a very traditional sense, the band will put out their record, then they'll go on tour for, hopefully 6 to 8 months if it's, a Met style band. So now they can't do that. I think there's just more discussion of how we're going to fill that time in between your next record so there's no momentum loss. So I feel like those conversations were happening fast and quick, but, I'm happy to say Royal Mountain has bands that work really hard, and I feel like everyone kind of picked up their socks and figured it out.
Yeah, that's great. So second question, this rolls into that nicely, because we were going to have you focus on telling us how music releases are happening without touring. Obviously, with touring being a key activity to raise awareness and connect with fans. So how have you been sort of customizing your releases now with bands like Mets and Doom Squad and Dizzy towards an audience, but obviously keeping it mostly digital and online?
Yeah, I guess I'll speak more to Dizzy because I manage them as well. So I feel like with them, obviously, we had big plans for them to be touring right now across Canada and North America. So when this all started happening, I think we kind of were like, hey, you just need to get online more. I mean, bands should be utilizing their social media on the regular anyways. That's so obvious, but it's surprising the amount of bands who struggle with that. And I feel like COVID has been a good lesson for those bands who did struggle with it, because that is the only way you're reaching your audience right now. So a band like Dizzy, I feel like we're okay at social media. They weren't amazing. And it was sort of just like really, someone like them, we put together like a pretty heavy duty social media calendar. And then with them, they put out their release in July. And before that, we're like, hey, they're gonna have to put out something. We have like a covers EP coming out in November. We're putting out an acoustic EP in February. They have like a B-side single. They'll be coming out next spring, sort of just to kind of keep it going. Hopefully next summer, fall, people are touring again, but to be determined on that. Yeah, so I think that was just sort of the change in strategy. Just kind of having them focus more online. Like I have them doing these sort of YouTube series called Liner Notes where they just go through their songs. They don't get like a ton of views, but it's something that their diehard fans really like, kind of takes up time, something you can add into the social media calendar to kind of keep it all moving. It means they're talking about the record. We're trying to do most of the songs off the record, so we kind of can keep talking about that record, all 8 videos over the next 3 months. Yeah, just to keep reminding people, because normally we'd be on the road talking about the record, but not an option. So I think the biggest focus for that band and a lot of the bands on the label is just putting out more content and getting creative about it and doing it cheaply. Because in the end, Royal Mountain, we've definitely expanded our campaigns a bit and probably are spending a bit more on the digital side than we would have originally. But in the end, I'm like, we can't inflate the budgets that much more. So it's just having bands kind of find creative ways to make cool content that keeps the momentum going till they can tour in 2022. I don't know. Yeah,
exactly. For artists or managers or anybody involved in an artist's career that are tuning in, what maybe pick out 3 points of social media that you think are most important in terms of pushing your artists out there.
I mean, I'll speak for who I work with, obviously. I mean, I think Instagram, obviously, for someone like Dizzy, is their biggest reach, just sheer amount of people who follow them and the engagement they get. I really like the YouTube side of it. I mean, I think I'm just someone who likes YouTube and like watching YouTube stuff. So that's just what I've been pushing them to, like create content on there and actually build that following. And obviously TikTok. None of the artists I work with are on TikTok, but I really wish they'd get on there. I don't think it's a bad idea to be on there. I can't really, obviously, like, as I say, no one I work with is using that platform, but I wish they would. So everyone out there, go figure out how to use that platform in a creative way.
And as far as content creation, are there any, I guess, case studies per se, or examples that, specific examples that you felt were really effective?
I don't think overall just seeing, like, as I say, most artists, I feel like they just kind of increase their content output. And once again, looking back, I'm like, maybe it was something we should have been doing anyways, instead of relying so heavily on that side of it. I'm like, the fact that, yeah, it's just funny when you lose something that you put so, and you know, touring will always be important, especially for a label, selling off stage and all that sort of stuff. But in the end, I'm like, I think it's forced artists to get more creative. And I don't, because we had to kind of have all this content output, I'll never do a campaign not like that again. It just doesn't make sense. Like, you might as well be doing it. It keeps people engaged. It's something to do outside of, you know, if you're writing and creating. Yeah, I think, I don't know if that answers the question, but.
Yeah, so I mean, I think overall, I mean, it's probably saying that artists need to diversify their box of tools, I guess.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
And not only now, but, you know, carry that on into the future.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, we'll move over on to Harrison now. So question that we asked you to focus on was creative promotional strategies. What creative ways, I mean, especially in your realm with EDM, where it's not necessarily album based, it may be a lot of, you know, singles or special projects or special collaborations. What kind of interesting promotional strategies have you implemented or wanted to come up with?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, the fact that, you know, I guess historically dance music has been thought of as mostly single based, you know, now without touring and shows and the constant, you know, hopping on flights and playing it like for 6 or 7 shows every single week, it's kind of given a lot of artists a bit of time to step back and say, all right, you know, I've had a lot of these things on the back burner. Maybe I wanted to do a more, you know, full length project, as opposed to this, like, you know, get a single out, grind, get another single out, grind. And so, you know, we've been working with a lot more artists now where instead of doing single releases, we're doing stuff that either builds into an EP or builds into an album of some kind or some kind of larger scale project. And really just starting to get people to focus on, I guess, like, you know, getting back into the creative mode and being able to have fun and explore that a bit more, has been, you know, a kind of a beneficial result of all this downtime for a lot of these acts. And then, you know, in terms of the promotional strategies and trying to get this out, we, you know, I think we're way over reliant on touring in terms of an effective promotion strategy. For the most part, songs were either broken at live performances or they were broken through videos of them at live performances and then used on socials. You know, it was a little bit of like, what the hell do we do at this point? But, you know, social media is still like kind of like the reigning place for getting the word out there. A lot of things because it's a lot of developing artists, and not necessarily a lot of space on radio platforms or any kind of like music videos are way out of the budget for a lot of these acts and a lot of these releases. So, socials is still like the most easy and direct way to get in front of these fans. Twitter is still the best platform when it comes to dance music and it comes to breaking and engaging with artists. And then to also engage with fans, and then to engage with your peers and kind of get just general excitement out there in the industry. And then live streaming, Twitch, that kind of stuff has been I think dance music more than any other platform, especially at the very beginning, just was a natural kind of like evolution of what these guys were doing. Like you put a DJ in front of a video camera and you say go, and these guys were going for like 6-7 hours. Like we've had people DJing on our live stream channels for upwards of 9 hours at a time. They're just machines. So it's all about I guess finding where that audience dispersed to once they were not at the concert halls and not at the clubs, and trying to reach them out and engage on that platform, and just ultimately finding creative elements to drip out there over a regular time period and stretching out these release plans. So like, again, shifting from that single release strategy to building into an album or building into a release, like some kind of EP project.
Okay. So do you feel for dance music, has it become interesting to have a return to like actual album like full projects, creative projects, as opposed to just sort of getting on the road and spitting things out every once in a while?
Yeah, and I don't think it's just because of what's happened. Like I think there's been a little bit more of a shift towards this over the last, maybe like 3 to 5 years, as more and more as dance music has become pop music and they've become kind of ubiquitous with one another. The move has been to separate from this kind of constant single and drip of pop music, which is now dance music as well, quote unquote, like core, dance music artists, club artists and whatnot, are able to kind of differentiate themselves by doing these longer player projects. And so, what used to be the trend, a decade ago, where people would really build up to an album after 8 years or something like that. And then maybe after that, they would just shift the singles again afterwards because that was their culmination project. Albums have become almost a yearly or bi-yearly thing that not only artists are putting out, but fans are expecting. And so you see it more and more on socials where it's like, when's the next album coming out? And they're just as eager as like, rock fans used to be or rap fans are and whatnot when it comes to these longer player projects, as opposed to just the singles and whatnot. Yeah.
That's great. And you mentioned Twitch. So, I mean, I know some DJs within the realm that I work in is mostly hip hop and R&B and dancehall and reggae. Some of the guys have been able to carve out a pretty nice weekly income from that. Can you let sort of people know who may not be as familiar with Twitch how you're able to monetize that?
Yeah, so just like a little background, like Twitch is a live streaming platform similar to how YouTube is, but it focuses on in the moment content, and people go on there and stream everything from them just having a conversation with the chat room to video games, like live streaming video games, to DJ sets or performances. So the two different ways that you can get money from Twitch is through having ads run on your videos. So as soon as somebody goes onto your channel to check out your live stream, a pre-roll ad runs similar to how you would see on YouTube. And then the other way is people subscribing to your page and then basically donating what's called bits directly to your page. So people subscribe to your page for like, I think it's like $5 a month or something along those lines. And then if they want to use certain emotes, which are like little characters in the chats, they can, you know, punch those in and buy those as well and buy access to that. So yeah, there's people out there, like the best streamers like out there making like, you know, probably close to 6 figures a month off this stuff. Like there's a lot of money to be made on that streaming market. You know, I don't think everybody is a natural streamer. You know, like I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, they're just playing video games online. Like how hard is that? But, you know, you got to keep people's entertainment for like 4 to 5 hours at a time and have them repeatedly come back to you. There's like, I personally was not as familiar with that platform, you know, kind of prior to this. Like I dabbled into it, but I'd never launched a stream or done anything or really gone down the wormholes of checking out the channels on there. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people on that platform. It's just a whole other, it was, you know, back in March, it was this interesting, you know, kind of like smush of these two worlds combining, of like gamer world and then all of the music world just kind of like finding a place to live and exist together.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing that somebody mentioned to me. One of the DJs was, I think there was an actual term for it, but like on Twitch, if you can have a benefit by rolling out of somebody's event that has a lot of like a big following,
Yeah,
to like roll into your event. Do you know anything about
yeah,
that?
so they have different things, and that was like part of like the whole like learning experience was like, oh cool, there's all these different little leverage tactics that we can do where we can become part of the Twitch community, as opposed to just like, hey, we're here, like we're going to exist in our own world.
Yeah.
It was like they have what's called rating and then hosting. So rating is when, you know, say you're a big streamer, or you could even like a small or moderate streamer, doesn't matter, but you have a couple of people watching your stream and your friend is going live, or somebody else that you have an interest in is live on their stream. You can push everybody that's watching your stream over to their stream. So you would have situations where, you know, somebody would have 100, 200 people streaming them, and then all of a sudden the room would jump up to 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. And, you know, a lot of times it was like done in tandem or like in coordination with these little like pockets of gamers or little fans of some other niche artist that is already established on Twitch. And it was really about like reaching out and building those communal aspects within that platform and working in their rules, as well as like kind of bringing our world to it.
Okay, great. So it could be really valuable in terms of like your actual social networking within Twitch as a platform.
Yeah, I mean, imagine like you're playing at a music festival and you have a 2 p.m. slot and the doors had just opened, you know, at 1:30. Like you're not expecting anybody to be there. But if, you know, for whatever reason, there was all of the people were just like held at the gate because like the headline artist was doing a sound check, and then they were just like, hey, everybody go check out, you know, whoever's on the stage right now.
Right.
It's like that kind of sensation of like, oh my gosh, like completely overwhelmed, and you know, it's amazing. It's a really cool element that they've introduced into that platform.
Great. Well, that's I think there's some good nuggets there. Yeah, the whole Twitch thing, I had just sort of found out some of that stuff, and I think it's pretty groundbreaking in terms of what it can do compared to the other, I guess, more rigidity of some of the other socials where it's like, okay, you have your following, you can't really like share easily.
Right.
So I found that really interesting. So yeah, on to our next question. So Dijah, you're an independent artist. Fully independent, pretty much wearing all the hats yourself, along with a manager. You put out a record 2020, and you crowdfunded towards that record. So I just wanted you to share sort of your experience on crowdfunding it. You're really strong on like Twitter, as well as your other socials, but I think Twitter is like a key one that you can get at. Just let people know sort of how you put all those things together and made it a success for you.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I was really struggling with how I was going to kind of maximize this release, because for years I've really just, as you said, been indie and just been releasing projects and singles and like doing the best I can promotion wise by myself, just like, you know, Instagram posts and asking people to retweet on Twitter. So I was thinking like I needed much more in terms of like this release. I really wanted it to kind of see the light that I think that it deserved. So I knew PR costs an arm and a leg, especially if you're going to hire somebody that's kind of effective and will actually help you build your brand and build your name. So I don't know. I asked my friend Shireen if she thought crowdfunding was tacky, and it's just like she's just like, nah, like if people want to hear your stuff, they'll pay to hear your stuff. Like if you have fans that kind of you connect with and they believe in you and your art, they'll pay for it. And it was just kind of it was just at the right time, because everybody was kind of just like, oh, support indie artists right now. It's really hard. Things are going a lot of us are losing a lot of streams of our revenue and stuff like that. So a lot of people felt obligated, to be honest, to kind of support and make sure that I stayed afloat. So it's funny, I was going to do a Kickstarter, but the process is just so long and just so like rigor. I'm just like, what? Like there's so many things you have to jump through before you kind of you're able to kind of raise money. So and it's kind of like a cliche thing that GoFundMe's are only for like medical expenses or funeral expenses or something like that. You rarely kind of see people raising money for things like art and stuff like that. So I dropped the GoFundMe link. It got over what I expected within a few hours. So I was really surprised about that. And I was able to afford the rest of the mixing and mastering of the album. I was able to afford 2 music videos, and then I actually hired a PR company that reached out to me from the UK, and it actually helped a lot. And I realized how expensive PR can be. So I did kind of like a 6-month campaign kind of thing, and I landed some cool blogs, major blogs too as well. And yeah, honestly, you just kind of have to go for it. You can't have any, and there's nothing totally anything wrong at all with crowdfunding and wanting people to kind of support you financially, because if you want that to be your career, essentially, that's basically what it is. You want your music to support you financially and be able to pay your bills and stuff. But my outlook of that was I just wanted to be able to kind of afford to not worry about where I'm going to get money to go to the studio or to send to my engineer to finish the mix and master of the project. So I think that's why people were kind of more obligated to support, because it's just like, once you pour money into this, you're going to get a new project from me. So yeah, basically my only tip would be to kind of just do it, especially if you know that you have support from people online and fans and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, congratulations on the success on the record. And if you were to dialogue with other independent artists, what would be your priority suggestions? Like, even if they don't do, you know, a crowdfunding campaign, or they don't have a lot of money, you know, disposable income right now, what would you prioritize for them in terms of putting out, you know, even if it was singles? What would you prioritize for them to do?
Definitely prioritize, yeah, singles. Just even if you could get just the funds to do 1 a month. DistroKid is $10 a year. You upload your stuff onto there and just kind of push and help and hope that you can get kind of stuff like playlisting and things that will kind of help boost your presence on the DSPs. But you really just have to sacrifice a lot of the times. Like when I didn't have the money to kind of be able to go to the studio or finish the mixing mastering on a record, I sacrificed and I put money aside that maybe would have been for something else, and I put it into my craft, because if you believe in it enough, it'll come back to you tenfold. And honestly, there's no real rule book to making it in the industry or becoming an artist that you want, or becoming an artist that you see like on like one of your favorite artists that you see as successful right now. There's really no blueprint to it. You really just have to be consistent and hope that people kind of catch on eventually. And yeah, you have to just invest in yourself, to be honest.
Great. Are there any surprises that have come to fruition sort of after the fact because of the record that you didn't expect to have happened? Whether it be monetarily or opportunities, exposure.
Yeah, no, I actually am in the midst of kind of signing a deal with I wouldn't call them a record label, but the people I'm distributing with right now, they kind of want to take it to the next level with me. So that shows you how successful that the album was. And I made a lot off of merchandise as well. I hooked up a Shopify website, and I threw on merch on there. There's actually a really good app that you can use. It's called the Shopify and Printify, that you actually can just design your own merch and you front the costs, but they actually get it all printed for you and shipped out and everything. So that was a major, because when I would do merch for myself, I would just kind of buy a bulk of like 50 or 60 t-shirts, and then I would have to sell them and go out myself and ship them and all sorts of craziness. So this kind of cuts the cost of having to kind of ship it yourself, and people are not buying it, so you have like a bunch of merch left over kind of thing. So that's a big thing if you want people to kind of support you financially. Merch is huge, and Printify kind of gives you that option to not kind of waste time buying in bulk and then not being able to sell.
And having to do the shipping and
the shipping and stuff like that. Also, a lot of artists are not on Bandcamp, which is really weird, because Bandcamp is really great in terms of like monetization and getting and making a lot of money. Every Friday, I think it was the first of the Fridays of the month.
Yep.
They waive fees, the artist fees that they usually take. And I remember the first time they did it, I made maybe a couple thousand off people just buying my discography. So Bandcamp is there, and it's direct, and the money goes to you, and people actually get files. They don't, like, a lot of people love streaming, but what is better than having like the actual MP3 files of your favorite artist's music, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's great. That's it's good to see that you've had good results on that, and yeah, the distributor wants to do some more stuff with you, so it's amazing. So we've got about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to go into a couple additional questions, and these will be open to all three of you. And again, if the listeners have any comments or comments, you could put in the chat, but if you have any other Q&A topics that you want us to try to cover, please drop that in the Q&A box. Yeah, so the next question I had was and Dijah, you kind of mentioned this, was about publicity and PR and media coverage, and I'm feeling that that's even more important right now, to get that additional push, whether it's through media coverage or news hits, or the multitude of ways that you can get publicity. So why don't we start with Harrison on this, and see where maybe where you've spent in terms of publicists, or maybe you're doing it yourself. Maybe the artist is doing it themselves.
Yeah, in general, like we do a lot of our PR in-house. We bring PR on for, some larger projects, if it's an album project especially, or if it's an artist that's, kind of it's not their first go around, I've unfortunately, like, I don't know if it's the same in either of your worlds, but at least in dance music, like it doesn't really matter if you have a PR person or not. If the artist is super junior, like nobody's picking it up. You really got to kind of like beg and plead for favors. It's really kind of, a lot of people are, unfortunately late to the party. I think, the blog years are over, and a lot of like the kind of great music journalism and the ability to go to a blog and find music that you haven't heard about before, that doesn't happen so much anymore. It's like they're very much just kind of reporting on what's hot on socials right now. Okay. So, like to that extent, like, we'll bring in the times I've brought in PR is like kind of like with a specific goal in mind, where there's a publication in particular that I can't get into, and they're not answering my emails, and so I'm literally just paying for access at that point. And I think that's always the best way to go about it, is use it strategically. It's not going to be your kind of silver bullet in anything, and it's not going to make or break it, but it can be part of that story that's going to help the entire project.
And as far as your realm with EDM, are there certain target outlets that you would find, good to get on?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it seems to like change seasonally, which like bigger tier outlets are going to be more receptive to dance music or electronic music. Yeah. There was a period of time in which Pitchfork was like a realistic pitch for us to get onto. That's not so much the case anymore. Like most of those dance editors are gone. Right now, okay. Forbes magazine does more write-ups about dance music and their dominance in touring on the electronic side. Like they talk about that stuff, and so they're more inclined to write about it. And Rolling Stone will never touch it. So like it's about kind of picking and choosing your battles and knowing who's out there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's great. And Dina, what about on your end?
I mean, as a label, we have someone in-house who pitches all our releases. I sort of same page as Harrison. Like, it's not gonna. I find a lot of artists we work with who get really amazing press. You're like, whoa, I wish I had that. Their streaming numbers are horrible. I feel like it never like quite lines up like you think it will. And the grass is always greener. Then we have those artists who are just like crushing on Spotify, and they're like, why isn't Pitchfork writing about me? It always matters more. Like, it's great. I think it's, for an artist, it's really nice when press writes about you, but it's not going to sell you records. It's part of the bigger picture. Like, that all helps. Like, I'm not saying press doesn't help, but it's just like one piece of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
I feel like I think the focus would be building your playlisting DSP type stuff over, hiring a publicist for $4,000 US a month to maybe get you one piece of press that'll feel like really nice at the time, but you're not going to get your money back on that. But yeah, obviously as a label, we have someone to help. So it is a key part of like every release we do, but that's, I think, part of being signed to a label. It's sort of part of our job in the genres we work with.
Yeah.
When you signed us, you get our in-house PR guy. He's going to pitch you. Some of it's going to go really well. Some of it just doesn't fit into what people are writing about right now. And, it kind of goes in waves. I would say like right now people like love writing about like someone like Ellis, who I also managed, was also on the label. I'm like, it's like girl singer songwriter, like Phoebe Bridgers type vibe. I'm like, yeah, PR loves writing about that right now. That just happens to be what, I feel like just don't ever take it hard if press isn't writing about you, because I feel like it's such a small piece of the bigger puzzle in the end. For all you independent artists out there. Yeah, don't stress about it.
Now, in terms of independence, how important is it for you as a label to have press on an independent artist? Like, do you take that into account when you're scouting people, or?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think essentially it's, there's like the thing, it's like solicited versus like unsolicited sort of stuff. It's just like, it's kind of, if an artist comes to us who's like really blown up in press, it is, once again, that's just a piece of their story that might put them ahead of the line of someone who's got like very minimal going on or really just starting out. But it's not everything. There's artists we take on who've never had anything written about them. But yeah, I feel like obviously if you come to a label and you have this sort of whole package put together, it's a piece of that package. It's like the songs are great, the photos look great, this content, whatever, stuff you've done independently looks amazing. Oh, also Pitchfork thinks you're cool. Yeah, I'm not going to say it doesn't help, but it's not the be all and end all anymore. Like, I think maybe, I feel like when I started working in labels, it was a bit more like, oh, so important. And now I'm like, it is a piece of the bigger picture, but it's definitely not everything anymore. And I think depending on the label, there's a lot more labels focusing on what you're doing on DSPs over Pitchfork giving you a 7.2 or whatever.
Yeah. And Dijah, on your end, how do you feel about it? Sort of half and half?
Yeah, half and half. There are media outlets that are kind of still influencers, like huge influencers. Like if you land a colors video, then you're out of here for sure, because those kind of things catch a lot of heat on Twitter and Instagram. And then once somebody on Twitter that has a huge following reposts this and says you're dope, then you're seriously out of here. But then Dina is absolutely correct in terms of playlisting, because like it or not, playlisting is kind of like the new gatekeeper, the new A&R. So many people, millions of people follow these playlists on Spotify, and Apple Music is catching up too. But I've just seen it myself as an artist that has been getting a lot of these playlists, like how important it is and how different the game is now, because I don't know, Spotify has just really, really found the right algorithm in terms of like helping people find indie artists that sound like the artists that they like already. And I've seen it myself where it's just like people will see your song on a playlist and then they'll like it, and then they'll dive into your kind of like your actual discography and stuff like that. So it's literally another form of gatekeeping, but if it works for you, then it really, really does work. And it really doesn't matter if you get playlisted. Mm-hmm. You get playlisted and then you could get streams, but a lot of the times you're not getting that person engaged. Like a stream could mean that the person listened to it for 30 seconds and then turned it off. Like you really want to see who your listeners are, which are the people that come back and kind of are streaming it again and again and again. So Spotify, Apple Music does a good, and even Amazon Music now does a good job of kind of like finding where your listeners are and giving you that data in order to kind of help you understand what you need to kind of work on, or
Okay. And as an artist, in terms of playlists, how have you chased down opportunities on playlists? Did mm-hmm. some of that come through your publicist, or is that you just utilizing the data that's coming in?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I remember the song that I have the most streams on is called I Wonder, and I released it a while ago, and then one day randomly it just got picked up by Spilled Ink, which is a Spotify playlist, and blew up from there. Like just continuously kept getting streams and plays. It was literally just random. I don't remember even like applying for playlisting, because you can do that. You have to give them Spotify a significant amount of time before you can kind of pitch yourself to them for playlisting, but it is possible. and it's through the app called Spotify for Artists. So I don't remember at all applying or putting that into there, but it got landed. And then from there, like once you're in the algorithm and once the algorithm sees that people are engaging with you, you'll continuously be playlisted. Like even if it's just a smaller playlist or like even on your followers release radars, the algorithm really picks you up and keeps you going. And then I started seeing more and more and more playlisting when, of course, I started distributing with this it's a label, but not really a label. They're called AWOL, and they have their in-house team that kind of pitches for playlisting. So I saw a very significant bump in like my streams and listeners because of like the playlisting.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, lots of goodies in there. We've got about 5 to 10 minutes, so I'll go into the last question. And this is probably something that's relevant to all of you because I visited your websites and I know that that's something that's core. But looking at merchandise and basic merchandise and or partnerships with brands. Just want you guys to sort of speak on that. Maybe Harrison, you can go first. I noticed you guys have a pretty deep merchandise offering through your website. Has that continued on as being effective without the live shows being in sort of in effect, or has there been a disconnect between them?
No, actually, our merch business has continued. I think it's better this year. We've been able to focus a bit more on the rollouts. We were doing, because we had so many events lined up, we were doing a lot of event focused merchandise. So you'd go to a show and you get your shirt from the show, or you get your shirt with all the tour dates on the back of it and whatnot. And that stuff's great. It's awesome. But a lot of times we're just kind of utilizing tour artwork. And what we've been able to do this year is use elements of kind of our world from DeadBeats, but then also kind of start to flesh out the merchandising side as more of a kind of, an actual clothing line. So, and an actual like an accessories line. So we've been able to roll out things like dog leashes. We've got a bunch of different slides in different colors. We have a whole array of bucket hats. We did a rolling tray that's like really nice and made out of wood. Like we've been able to really kind of expand our line because we've been untethered to these events at this point. So that's been great. And it's also been a really good way of, kind of slotting in between any releases that we may have or any major projects, another thing to engage fans. One thing I will say though is we've been doing a lot more of limited edition stuff, which I think is, kind of taking a little bit from that, buying something at an event, and that's like your one shot to get this item. So making that element kind of present in terms of these merchandise drops, I think has been really beneficial. And it's allowed us to like also kind of experiment with some of our more developing artists. So we've got them doing their first t-shirt or their first like hat that they've ever released or something like that. I mean, it's been a great way to engage fans without actually having that physical connection.
That's great. Are you guys manufacturing and then shipping on your own, or are you guys using sites that? I guess it depends, maybe artist to artist.
I mean, it depends actually item to item. Sometimes there are like some items that we do where we will take orders in advance and then shut the orders off and then place the order at that point. But no, for the most part, we actually like design the shirts, the hoodies, and everything like that, like in terms of like getting them all like re-sewn and like built from scratch. So we're like fully invested in this merch business at this point. It's a really good side of the business for us right now.
Nice. And any,
Oh, my dog.
have you done any like brand partnerships or anything with any other, with any
Like
particular brands, or would that
Mm.
be something for the future that you'd like to look at?
On the merchandising side, not so much.
Okay.
We've done things in the past where like we did a limited edition like necklace piece with the company called Vitali, and that was for one of our artists. But you know, branding and everything like that, we've always kept to you know, sometimes we do giveaways in tandem with different companies, but it's them giving away their own item and then us giving away an item as well.
Right. Okay.
But no kind of like cross collaboration at this point, although that's always fun.
Great. Dina, what about on your end?
Yeah, I mean, same with Harrison, we've always had an online store. I feel like we haven't necessarily ramped up our online store, though, like sales have been good this year considering. I think people are just sitting at home shopping. But sort of what Dijah said, like, go start a Bandcamp, guys. Like, it is like people want to spend money on arts and artists, and yeah, it's such an easy way to do it. I always recommend artists have their own store. Like Royal Mountain, you know, every release we put out, Royal Mountain sells through their store. You can get it there. You know, the money does go back to the artist, but if you want to hit it direct, like for sure, go to the artist store, set up your own store. To what Harrison said, to some artists I work with, yeah, doing the limited edition stuff, you can get really small runs of stuff now for not crazy expensive, especially t-shirts. And I don't know, just adding that limited edition tag, people will buy that and they'll buy it quick. And I've been doing, you know, you do like a pre-order on it so you can kind of see how it's going and then just sort of buy what you need. You know, you don't have to go in and buy 200 shirts or something if that's not what you can sell. Just go in and see how it's going. Yeah. It's a pre-order. Yeah, but merch is always, especially for, yeah, as a label, yes, we do it, but I feel like as artists, please go set up a store. Bandcamp's the easiest way to do it. Obviously, you have to fulfill that stuff yourself. That can be some logistics around that, but if you're just starting out, you got time. Let's do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about vinyl releases with you guys? I mean, I've heard. I mean, it's a funny stat, I guess, now that CDs are kind of, you know, vanquished now, but I think it was like a month ago or a month or two ago that vinyl sales have actually trumped CD sales now, which is kind of interesting. So I was just wondering how important are vinyl sales?
Oh yeah, everything we put out goes on vinyl pretty much, unless it's a real small one-off thing. Vinyl's expensive. Like for an independent artist, it's not a cheap thing to manufacture. Especially, you know, if you're starting out. When you're a label, the minimum runs we're doing is probably 500, and as you go up, it gets cheaper to make them. But maybe as an artist, you don't want to be sitting on 500. So I think if you're starting out, don't bother, especially if you can't sell them at shows. But as a label, yeah, it's super important. It's something, our pre-orders on vinyl trump everything else on our store, hands down. It's what people come to buy from the label, for sure. And I do think people, you know, even with COVID, still go out to their local record store and buy. You know, we're still shipping stuff out. So, yeah, it's still definitely an important part of our business. Great.
And Dijah, you did touch on the importance of merch for you. But is there any items that you've found were best? Are there any interesting merch stories that you've had, or that sort of thing?
It's funny because when I worked at the job I previously just quit, my manager would make jokes about having a mug or wanting a mug, a DijahSB mug, and I put it on the website, and it was actually the most sold item. So people like mugs. I don't get it, but I guess, and it's actually pretty sturdy mug too. So people were telling me, so that's a good one. Like t-shirts and hoodies obviously are just general and will always kind of sell. And you can literally slap your logo or your design on anything And if it's nice enough, people will buy it, even if they don't know what the heck it's about or that it represents your music or anything like that. It's just about branding and kind of having the kind of guts to put yourself out there and build your own shop and hope people will support.
Great. All right. Well, I think we're pretty much on time. So we're going to jump on to Q&A. So this, I guess you guys can kind of jump in where you see fit. But we'll take a look at the Q&A questions right now. Okay. So first one we've got is, can you guys give pointers and tips for emerging artists trying to build a fan base online? How to beat, fight, win against the streaming algorithm as a small indie artist? And that question is from Alec.
To be honest, there's no beating it or fighting it or winning against it. You actually just kind of have to either comply with it or not. The only really way that it gets combated is by places like Bandcamp, where it doesn't really matter about the algorithm and streaming. You're just literally directly supporting the artist by putting money into their pocket. But I hate to say, and it sounds cheap to people, but this is just the way that it is now. And you kind of gotta adapt. And if you love making music as much as you think you do, you'll kind of do whatever it takes to create your career and have it uphold. But there's no winning or beating it, to be honest. Like, it's just technology and what has become of using these gadgets. So the best thing you could actually do is continuously, what the DSPs love is when you continuously kind of drop stuff. Like, you have to be, you can't, as you said, Jesse, you can't no longer disappear for 4 or 5 years, especially if you're an indie artist. Like, you can't do that. If you want to grab the attention and you want the algorithm to work for you, you have to keep feeding it. And it sucks, but it'll get to a point where you won't have to do that anymore because you'll have a solid fan base.
Yeah, I would agree. That's just building your fan base. It's and keep releasing stuff, keep building your followers on Spotify, like direct people to follow you, because that's going to get, like, for artists now, the release radar that shows up, that can be some of the biggest streams that release will get, and that's just from them building their followers on there. And then, I think with algorithms, I'm not going to pretend I know the science behind how Spotify works, everything, but like, I think when they see your followers in that initial, like, people streaming it, you're more likely to get in those algorithms. It just keeps, like, it's just like a ball that keeps rolling. But it's hard, you can't go from zero to that. It's like you have to spend time building that fan base everywhere, but on there, like, push people to follow you on Spotify. Make Spotify playlists of, like, your inspirations. Tell people to go follow that. Like, it's just sort of, unfortunately, we are marketing for these DSPs in the end a lot, but it's sort of part of a bigger evil that you have to be part of. Mm-hmm. Not an evil. Yeah. We love them. Please playlist our songs. But yeah, you just got to play the game, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I think
as a label. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say,
I'll hold this after.
I was gonna say, I think Dijah's like spot on with don't fight the algorithm. Like, learn how it works, and work within that model. Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to put it on there. Like, it's a piece of code. Like, what are you gonna fight?
The question I had as running labels, do you guys create playlists for yourselves as a label, and does that trickle down to helping your artists at all?
Yeah, Royal Mountain has a Spotify list. I would say, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like artists, it's better for them to do it almost. Like, I would say, like, our artists have more followers on their individual stuff. I think it's more, obviously, like, we're there to support them and promote it best we can. But I think, yeah, in the end, every man for themselves. Like those artists should like Billy should be building their stuff, because, you know, hopefully they stay with us forever, but they might move on to bigger and better things, or, you know, but yeah.
Okay. All right. So question number 2, we have got, for labels, how do you find or scout new artists now that you can't really see them performing live? What platforms are you checking for? This was an anonymous question. I'll let you guys take it from there.
Twitter. Just stay on Twitter. And like, if there's hype on there, then like, you know that it's got something. It's going to give you a pretty good scope into somebody's personality and what they're, you know, it's very limited in terms of what you can actually do on Twitter. Like you're essentially just texting into the void. And so if somebody can actually display their personality in that, you know, 240 characters or whatever, or series of 240 characters, and get people excited about music through like 30-second, minute-long snippets, that to me, that's probably the biggest like heads up that this is cool. There's something available to maybe work with.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of, I hate to say this is so cliche, but it is a lot of who you know. And I think a lot of the stuff that we hear about or sign is sort of like come down through our network, essentially, which isn't super helpful. I realize saying that, but in the end, I'm like, I feel like find a champion of your music. And if you find that right champion, like it will work its way through the networks. You know, if there's something great going on there and the package is good and the music's awesome, like just find the people around it championing. And like, yeah, like we get sent music from everywhere, from, you know, you just never know where it's going to come from, but it definitely is sort of through our greater network. But yeah, find people who love your music. They will take it far and wide.
Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, have either of you, your labels signed someone solely off the reference of one of your existing roster?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to give an example.
I would say no for me.
I don't know.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not. I can't think of it.
I mean, you gotta, for me, like, I mean, I'll definitely look at something. Like if somebody that I know and I've worked with and I trust their opinion passes me something and is like, hey, check this out, I'll check it out. But, you know, it still has to pass, you know, the musical taste test for us at the end of the day.
Yeah, same. I don't think we've never signed something because they were friends of the label. You know, it's still, yeah, it had to pass the test of being, this is something we all love and we think it's gonna work. But yeah, I'm sure we've like been given through an artist I'm sure it's that sort of what Harrison's saying, been like sent something. I imagine, I don't know. I can't think of examples, so maybe we haven't.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I was just curious. And Dijah, you're still independent, but you did say you had some attention from a distributor. Was there something notable that you think got their attention? Aside from just, you know, performance and sales?
Mm-hmm. It's funny. And this is a big gem right here. There's kind of been a shift in terms of like what labels are. A lot of them are turning into kind of distributors, and then you actually need to kind of sign up and be eligible in order to kind of distribute with them, versus DistroKid where you can just distribute anything if you're anybody. And then what happens is you'll release music through them and they'll kind of like throw a little gasoline on the fire, like they'll playlist you here and there or promote you here and there, and then they'll kind of see how you do in order to kind of like invest in you then, versus like old school where it's just like, oh, you see this artist, they're popping off, and then you invest money in them, and then you don't even know if they're going to make that money back because their stuff from then on is like crap or not good enough for their fans or whatever. So I've seen a lot of them. Tidal just dropped one, and then there's one I'm working with named AWOL, and there's a few others as well. So I feel like it's still a label, but they do give you a lot more creative freedom, and just like they act like a label, but you still kind of have your independence. So that's huge, but you also can't just kind of like apply and expect them to kind of accept you. You have to have sort of like a core little small fan base, or like a few tracks that kind of have gained attention, or just if they believe in the sound when they hear it, that'll be good too. But it was definitely because I was releasing with them and they were kind of seeing how engaged people were getting. So then they're like, okay, now it seems kind of worth it to kind of, put more gasoline on the fire. So
Right. Great. Next question was, as an independent artist who doesn't like social media, how do you decide where to focus and don't spend so much time? What would help push sales, lead to opportunities, etc.? Or even how do you get yourself to enjoy being on social media?
That's a tough one, especially throughout a pandemic right now. Like, it's kind of unavoidable. If it's more so that you don't like your presence on social media, like your face and stuff like that, you can always commission people to kind of do like lyric videos, or videos where you're just kind of putting people dancing to it and hoping that it goes viral or something like that. But if it's more so like your mental health and you don't like engaging with people, maybe putting a time limit on how much time you spend on there could be one way to kind of combat that. But it's kind of, you can't avoid that. It's really a major part of how a lot of artists either get seen or build their fan base now, because the streets talk, but nobody's kind of buying CDs or anything like that anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I've sort of touched on this earlier. I feel like I call them content calendars. But yeah, doing something like that, because I feel like you can kind of schedule. I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed with social media because there's so many of them and having to think through each one. But if you kind of just sit there and spend a few hours sort of planning out weeks in advance of like, here's what I want to post every day. I'm trying to, make a goal, be like, I'm going to try and post on Instagram 3 times this week. If you think it through in advance, I feel like it gets a little less overwhelming and you can kind of just like really spell it all out. You can even, I don't use these apps, but there's like Hootsuite and stuff. You can pre-schedule that stuff, so you don't even have to think about it if that's sort of what's scaring you off social media, or like if that, that can save on time if it's taking up a lot of your time. But yeah, it's sort of another one of those necessary evils if you think social media is evil.
I mean, there's like 5 or 6 different platforms you could choose to engage with fans on. Find the one you do like and just focus on that is probably the best move. There's definitely elements of all social media that I wish I could do without. Like, if I never had to go on Facebook again, I'd be so happy. But unfortunately, like, I have to run Facebook ads and I have to deal with that. It's really just kind of like finding which one works for you. Like, I have a couple of artists that are just terrible at social media, except for TikTok. And TikTok, they know how to use, and they are incredible on there. Not sure if they figured out a way to actually promote their music on TikTok, or if it's just like being a fool on there. But either way, like, they found some way to connect with the audience, and that's just using that as your toe in the water entry point into it and get more comfortable with the platform, because it's a necessary evil. Yeah, both right.
Yeah, great, some good answers there. Dijah, specific question for you. You're popular here. Being an independent artist, how do you capture the attention of digital partners like a Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc., for playlisting and features?
Mhm. Cliche, as Dina said, but who you know, to be honest. Yes, a lot of it is algorithm based, but there are also people that are being paid to put these playlists together. And if they like you and if they like your music, they'll playlist you. It's kind of like a gatekeepy thing, and it's hard to kind of explain, but you kind of just have to get yourself out there enough for people to kind of be interested enough to want to playlist you. And also, as I suggested before, there's the app called Spotify for Artists, where if you give them your track that you want to upload to your distributor, at least I think it's 2 or 3 weeks out, then you can apply and give them a little bit of information about your single, and they'll playlist you if they like it. That's really it. And then once you really get one of those playlists and people are engaged with it, it's like a snowball effect. Like, you'll continue to get playlisted. And really, that's it. Like, don't go looking for who is a playlister or a curator of a playlist, because like, you're not going to really get access to that in that way. And don't fall for people that say that they're playlisters or curators, because the only way you can really get playlisted is if you apply through Spotify. Like, I've seen and called out many scams where it's just like, oh, I can get you on Rap Radar. And it's just like, no, you can't. Like, certain labels can't even get on Rap Radar. So it's just a way to kind of take advantage of indie artists. But as much as some people may hate it, playlisting is significant, and it's real people behind it. So you just kind of gotta network and find your way towards getting the attention of those people.
Mm-hmm. Any feedback on the label end in terms of being familiar with your independent or your artists, sort of connecting with those outlets?
I mean, we have Royal Mountain. We work with a great distributor and a great label partner who's Angie. She's in this chat. She like works very hard on our behalf, and they're sort of our like direct line. You know, we as a label, you know, we'll take meetings a few times a year, sort of pitch our catalog we got coming, priority releases, that sort of stuff, and then they sort of behind the scenes go and like really hammer that our artists are a priority. But yeah, you know, if you're an independent artist, as a manager, I work with ones who self-release. It kind of, once again, is sort of who you know, and building that network and finding the champions at those DSPs. Not easy to do. There definitely is, like, they are the gatekeepers we talk to. It's not, you know, you just can't go knock on their door and they're going to pay attention to you. But yeah, it's just finding your champion there. I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's really, yeah, just find the one person that is on your side and build that relationship with them and kind of go from there. You know, you may have independent playlisters that are supporting you, and you can reach out to them that you see on Spotify and, you know, thank them. Sometimes these independent playlists are just as active and just as beneficial to the long-term health of a release as these editorial lists. So, you know, it's really just kind of like addressing it that way. And I have plenty of releases that have gotten little to no support from editorial things, but have gone on to be very successful tracks that are recognized and like have drawn in new fans because of independent playlists. And it's really just like, you know, again, finding those champions and building with them and kind of going back to them repeatedly. Same thing as if you get into the algorithm, like if you feed it, it's gonna work for you. And if you have these editors or playlisters that are on your side, then feed them.
Okay, next question for Dina and Harrison. What initiatives have you or your label taken to prioritize and support Black artists, employees in the BLM movement itself, and why?
I guess I'll start. Yeah, I think like a lot of companies, we all looked into it. It's been an ongoing conversation. Some stuff we've immediately set up is, if the artists have to agree to this, so it's kind of a case by case thing, but $1 from every record sold goes to either a charity of their choice or BLM Toronto. And then the other thing we're doing, once again, this has been halted because of COVID, but it's something we're working on, is we want to set up a program where we're bringing in interns, where it's kind of, you know, you're not chosen, because I feel like the standard thing, like I went to one of those schools, I went to Harris Institute. We're kind of going to look outside that and sort of, you know, work with some programs to kind of target people who want to come in for 3 or 4 months at a time, learn what it's like to work at a label, not based on color of your skin, anything of that. Don't even have to send in a resume, just tell us why you want to work in music and love it. And yeah, just kind of build that. I'm hoping, you know, that'll also, in doing something like that, hey, Royal Mountain's a super white label. Y'all can look at that roster. It's sort of, you know, something we're like working on. But I think if we sort of start from the employment aspect and work out, hopefully we can work out from there. Yeah, I think it'll educate us more and might be introduced to some really cool projects we might not have been introduced to before, which I think will be really exciting. So yeah, it's all work in progress. We got a lot of work to do for sure, but starting it.
Yeah, we went, so, you know, when COVID first happened, we kind of continued our release schedule as planned. But at the beginning of June, we like shut down completely for about 2 weeks, you know, when everything was really kind of like reaching a fever pitch online, and just turned our socials over to just amplifying the issues that were going on and continuing to like work behind the scenes to figure out ways that we could, you know, run donations and charities, and just kind of continue to be a part of the conversation and foster conversation. You know, we took a couple of releases that we were working for later in the month, and then finding ways to, you know, I think like one of our releases, we took, we did a vinyl run as well as a t-shirt run in addition, so that we could raise more profits off of it to donate everything over to an independent journalism outlet called Riot Unicorn. I think that's the name. Yeah, or Unicorn Riot. I may have it mixed up. But yeah, we kind of configured from there, and then we were turning all of our live streams over to run donations for any of these bail funds that were showing up and all that. So, you know, at the time we were really focused on just trying to raise as much money and awareness on the problem as much as possible. You know, going forward, we don't have a big staff. Like it's me and Harley that works at DeadBeats. And so between her and I, yeah, it's a very white office, you know. It'd be great if we had any more employees in general, and would love to, you know, hire anybody down the line, but we couldn't really do much on that side. But, you know, looking at our roster and everything like that, we've been very lucky to have a very kind of multicultural and because a very international roster over the last few years. Even, you know, I think this year in particular, we've been able to work with like a wide variety of LGBTQ, people of color, female, and then a bunch of like boring white guys too. Like we've hit them all. So we, you know, I'm when I get demos and new artist projects and anything like that, I usually have no idea what the heck people are, or like I don't even know what people's names are. I'm terrible with that. electronic music in general just has a little bit more of this anonymous kind of aspect to it. So, you know, for better or worse, that's kind of been a pervasive element in the scene for a while. And I think it's more about kind of diving in and looking into these artists. And that's why I mentioned like Twitter is like that outlet that I use to really discover new acts. And that's because like, that's, I can actually see who the heck these people are. And if they've got, you know, some kind of interesting story to bring to the game.
Yeah, for sure. Are just asking you guys as labels, are you open to accepting new acts onto your label right now? Are you physically open to that, or are you full in terms of your roster?
We're always looking. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I feel like it's an on, you know, release schedules. We try and do a certain amount a year, but we're always looking. And it's, you know, sometimes we sign 6 artists a year, sometimes it's a couple, but great music's great music. And so you never know when it's gonna come to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for ways to kind of, I think we have a similar problem where we just have a set release schedule, and for better or worse, it's very set. And it's like just kind of getting through the motions. And once you have a certain roster of artists, you want them to continue working with you, and you want to always make room for them and everything like that. So we've been looking for ways to, you know, whether it's, you know, side labels or sub labels or whatnot, ways to kind of amplify developing artists, and then, you know, kind of poking around and trying to find people that can maybe been looked over, that maybe that they don't have the most popping Twitter possible out there, but they make really, really good music. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, on that note, I would definitely encourage, I mean, if there's any Black artists that are watching right now, to send your music in to these 2 labels. I mean, obviously check out the labels first. Obviously they have their own niche, and if you fit well, then I would say don't hesitate to submit, because you never know.
Yeah.
I think we have time for 2 more questions. Dijah, so we've got another question for you specifically. What results have you seen from your release financially and plays, streams? Would you attribute your success to your work with the PR company you're working with, or would you achieve this without them?
It's a tough question because it's kind of difficult to know where certain things kind of went right and where certain things kind of didn't. I did have a good run with the PR company that I chose. I wasn't impressed, but they did help me a bit. I think really the hype that I received was around the GoFundMe and the fact that so many people supported me and wanted to see kind of the music come out. Financially, streams don't pay you a lot of money, so I'm not really significantly seeing a lot of money from streams, but it's still kind of cool every so often to kind of check and see like you have $100 US in the bank because of streams, and it's just like, oh, I could pay my car insurance today. So it's definitely something that kind of builds as you get more audience interactions and people engaged. But I won't say PR is that important. I mean, like, again, as Dina said, like as a label, it kind of comes with it. You kind of have to have a PR person because you just want to be able to, especially if you have a good story, you want to be able to build your brand on the story that you want to tell. And once you have that story behind you, people are more obligated to kind of like you and like your music. Because social media is just so big, a lot of people fall in love with artists because of their personalities, and then the music kind of comes after. So it's been big for me kind of just being active on social media and gaining my followers and stuff like that. So I think my success actually just came from, I've been rapping for 10 years. I've been engaging with people for 10 years. I've been networking for 10 years. I think it's just been snowball effect, and this finally became time to kind of break through for me.
Okay, great. Let's see. I think, actually, this is kind of an interesting question, so I'll ask this one. If you had $1,000 to promote your release, how would you spend it? What tools would you use? Maybe start off with Harrison on that one.
Well, if it was right now, I wouldn't spend any money on Facebook because it's awful during election season. You're going to burn through that $1,000 super fast. Learned that lesson the hard way over the last month. I would, depending on the track, that's what I think it really comes down to. If you've got something that's like a bop and it's super catchy immediately on the onset and you think it's going to work on TikTok, then try to find yourself a little micro influencer campaign. Find yourself 20 people that you can pay $50 to and let them take off with it. If it's more of like kind of a artistic, folky singer-songwriter type thing, or it's like an electronica type piece, like maybe sync that into a visualizer that you can put onto YouTube and kind of have it sync off and go there. But unfortunately, that like $1,000 is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. It's one of those things where you're probably better syncing it all in one thing as opposed to trying to spread it thin across the best and having like a bunch of lackluster results.
Okay, great. Dina, any response further to that?
Yeah, I mean, agree with Harrison, like $1,000, so that's tough. I think just like get, call in your friends, get some nice photos done. Just get like a nice package together if you can. Maybe like, sync it in. Once again, this really depends on the genre, but I'll just speak to me what Royal Mountain puts out. It's like, get a great looking photo together. Maybe it's a visualizer, lyric video type thing, and then put some money aside. Sync that into the Instagram ad side. You can run YouTube ads pretty cheap though. I don't know. Can look good, but they're all like fake views. I don't know.
Yeah.
We do it all the time, man. Like when you see artists on labels who have like hundreds of thousands of views pretty quick, you're like, yo, the artist has nothing else going on. It's because they spent $500,000 making something go on. Like you can do that stuff pretty cheap, but I just like that's not actually engaging anything. But if you're just trying to like, I feel like I'm not giving a great answer. $1,000 is tough, but just make sure your music's awesome first and foremost. I think just put together a package that looks great. But I think when you're starting out, especially if you're a creative, you probably have some friends you can take some nice photos and help you with your artwork. Maybe do a nice, give someone $250, make a nice little video. Just get some content. At least you made a video. Actually, you can cut that up and use it for social media content. So maybe I'd do that.
Okay,
spend it on
great.
A visualizer type thing. Sorry, that was really unhelpful.
And Dijah, from your end, what would you spend that money on as an artist yourself?
If you're talking about like content wise, do a project, do a small EP. A lot of people unfortunately aren't really engaging in long projects. So when you see somebody put out a 14-track album, it's really not gonna, especially if nobody really kind of is listening to you already, it's not really helpful. 4 or 5 tracks, if you're working with the right engineer, that's nearly not even $1,000, and maybe spread them out within a few months and just continuously kind of promo and have that algorithm work for you because you continue feeding it. If you're talking about promoting or PR wise, what you can do with $1,000, Instagram ads are great. Commissioning somebody to do a lyric video or a visualizer, or like even trying to kind of meme your music in a sense where it's just like you get like LeBron James dancing to some other song, but you dub it over your music and then post it with some sort of caption. It sounds corny, but it works sometimes, and like it gets people to be like, hey, what is that song, or whatever it is. But definitely ads are okay. Instagram ads, Facebook ads. It can eat through your money quickly, so you got to be careful with that. But in all, if I had the $1,000, I would just create like 4 or 5 singles and go from there.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, next question. Would any of you recommend waiting until touring is possible again to release a new record? The cost is massive, and so far, I can't see any of these suggestions offsetting the cost of putting out a new record.
Depends on the genre. I don't know. I feel like I think at this point we just don't know. That's a tough thing, because it would depend where you are at in your career. When the last time you really, like, you don't want to go silent for 2 years while you wait this thing out. I think that'd be a way bigger hindrance than putting something out now, or like at least releasing singles or an EP. But yeah, once again, like if you were more I don't know, more maybe, I mean, Met's obviously just put out a record, but more a band like that like heavily relies on the live aspect, maybe. But yeah, I feel like staying quiet for 2 years isn't helpful either, because we just don't know when. I think, you know, talking to agents, like they're like, maybe US September 2021 will be an option. Like that's how long this could go before proper tours are back up. So I don't think you should stall out your career. I think there's just things you could do not to do that, even though like it is costly to put that out, but like find a cheaper, like don't put, sort of what Dijah was talking about, like don't put out a 14-track album, put out some singles, put out an EP, like do it cheaper, and then save up. If touring is really important to the genre of music you do, then save up and do the album then. But in the meantime, I think going silent isn't a great idea either, in my opinion. But
Okay, just so we can try to get through these, there are a bunch of questions. Are you guys okay to go for a couple more, or do you guys have to? Yep. Okay, so this next one's for whoever wants to take it. What platform would you recommend artists to focus on right now for generating revenue? Spotify, playlisting, focusing on Bandcamp, iTunes sales, merchandise sales, etc. Is there one particular component that you guys would find more effective right now?
We definitely, again, want to emphasize Bandcamp, because you can also set up like a merch shop on there. You can also sell vinyls on there. You can sell cassettes on there. And the money kind of directly goes to you. You set your own price, whereas Spotify, Apple Music, they have their set price on what a stream costs and what they think that's worth and what that's valued at. So with Bandcamp, you kind of, set your own price, and your fans are willing to pay. Also, a good one is, I don't know, I forgot what it's called, that one where people subscribe to you for a certain amount of money, and there's
Patreon.
Like, there's different tiers. Patreon, yeah. That's a good one too, because then if you have a certain amount of subscribers, then you know at the end of the month, I'm gonna get $1,000. And it's kind of stable because you have that same amount of people subscribing to you every month, and even more people subscribing to you every month. So you don't want to focus on the DSPs when it comes to revenue, because there's no money in that. Like it's very rare that you make a decent living off of streaming. Like I understand everybody's emphasis on touring, because that is where you get a lot of your revenue. But God forbid, what happens if you can't tour? Like forget COVID. Like what happens if you yourself, something happens and you can't tour? You have to kind of find out. You got to have multiple kind of streams of revenue coming. through. So you got to maximize the platforms that kind of really champion the independent artists.
Thank you. Anybody have anything to add to that?
No, I feel like nailed it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think anything that you can own, and like Bandcamp is like
Yeah.
you own that. Like if people buy stuff, right, you get their email addresses and all that. So like that's data that you own. You're not going to get that from really any other platform. So yeah, I mean, that's crucial.
Great. Question specifically for Dina. What are digital DSPs?
It stands for Digital Service Provider. I hope I'm getting that right. Yeah, it's Spotify. It's just anyone that's streaming or has your music up digitally. So Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Tidal. Oh my God, missing so many, I'm sure. YouTube Music, I guess, technically. Yeah, anything that's where your music's up digitally is a DSP.
Okay, and a secondary to that, any advice on how to build better relationships with the DSPs?
I feel like we sort of touched this, but yeah, I think it's just like finding the champion there. Yeah, sort of,
Right.
you know, it's fine. Yeah, it's just finding the champion. I think that's just the best way. Outside of another thing you could do if you're an independent artist is, it's why people have managers or they work with distributors, is building your team outside of just you. So it's like, if you can't break down those barriers as an artist, because it is really tough, you know, those people are getting a lot of correspondence a day. That's when you might look to, if you're ready and at the level to split money, because as soon as you bring in team members, you're splitting money out. But yeah, that's why people get managers. Their manager might have a relationship over there. Oh, we brought it working with AWOL as DijahSB more closely. They have contacts over there. Yeah, so that's another avenue to take if you're at the level to do that. And knowing that that's when, yeah, money starts going out of your pocket into your team members' pockets.
Sure. Are there any particular companies that focus specifically on relationships with DSPs, like third-party companies?
Not, Dijah also touched on this. Don't believe anyone who's like saying they're going to get you on some kind of play. Like any of those marketing companies saying that, they're total scams. The only people who are going to get you on there is your distributor, because they're going to have a strong relationship, hopefully, with those partners, because that's what you're giving them a percentage of your revenue for. Or your manager. You know, maybe a publicist has a relationship with some more, like less an editorial, but some more popular, what do you call those? Like personal made playlists. But yeah, that's really it. Or if you obviously have a personal relationship, but if you don't, then yeah, just don't ever hire any of those marketing companies. All lies.
Right. There we go. Okay, for an indie artist who has an album they are recording now and looking to submit to record labels eventually, has anything changed in what you're looking for as far as the artist submission because of COVID? That question's from Elena.
No, I mean, looking for good music. Send it, you know, I think most people usually send as a SoundCloud link. That's how most of our submissions come in. You know, some of them, once again, it depends. Like, you know, if it's through our network, they might just send a SoundCloud link. If it's more someone we don't know, it's like sending a bit more information about the project. Whether that's sort of putting together, yeah, it's like a very concise little write-up about what the project is, where it's come from, you know, if there's a unique story behind it. And then any visuals, you know, if you put together your own video, we always like to see that. And then obviously all your online links, so you can see, you know, that stuff all matters, sort of where your numbers are at and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't think it's changed too much.
Okay. So there wouldn't be any inclination to focus less on the image of an artist, even because of COVID, because they don't really have to go anywhere?
I mean, I hope I'm definitely not saying like Royal Mountain is super image based or anything. We're totally not. I think, but it's just more like what I said. It's just more like the package is like, it's been like thought out and there's like a vision for it. I think is maybe more what I'm getting at. Yeah, there's just like sort of a vision for whatever that is, and that's your story, right? And it's your creation, and yeah, it's all, we love seeing that stuff when someone has like such a distinct idea and vision for their project, and we can kind of come in and use our network to further that vision, give advice if you want it. But we're, you know, I think some of Royal Mountain's mandate is being very artist friendly, and we sign people because of their vision, and we're just there to kind of lift it up onto the next level.
Okay. And I will pick one last question. Yeah, why don't we do, this is a pretty simple one, but it can definitely help somebody out. How important is having distribution as an artist? Does it matter?
Yes.
Yeah.
You need it. You can't pitch direct to any DSPs. You need some form of distribution, whether it's DistroKid, AWOL, Royal Mountain goes through Universal. Those people are your direct line to DSPs. If you don't personally have one via that network I was sort of talking about, those are the people who are like making you a priority, getting you on the playlist where you need to be. Obviously something like a DistroKid, I'm not gonna say DistroKid is gonna do that. Like that's like a starting off point. If you're starting off and, you know, just trying to get music out in the world and get it going, but then you sort of graduate up, maybe working with AWOL where you got more of a team who's behind your back, you know, behind your back, has your back, I mean, behind your back pitching to DSPs. Yeah, but yeah, it's, you 100% need that.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree.
Harrison,
Yeah,
specifically for your genre, are there certain distributors that are key? Or is it pretty open?
No, I think it's open. Like we all work with the same groups of people out there. Like AWOL is a major distributor. Create is a newer kind of direct, you know, they're a similar platform as to like TuneCore, where it's a little bit lean, but they're working with a lot of you know, large rap and I think a lot of like Latin acts at this point. And then, yeah, I mean, we are also working through Universal. I know Angie's in the chat room, so hi.
Angie.
So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, when it comes to distributors, I think ultimately you get what you pay for. Like if, you know, you go with a DistroKid or CD Baby or something like that, you're not paying a lot, but you know, something goes wrong with your release, there's not really anybody answering that tech support email. And then, you know, you scale up like AWOL, you know, you have a dedicated label rep, you're working with Universal, you have a similar thing. And then, yeah, I mean, it's just about finding, I think the most important thing with a distributor is finding one that responds to you. And, you know, you could be at any place, but if you have a dedicated representative that answers your emails and helps you out on questions, then that's the best distributor for you. Because at the end of the day, it's like, again, they're not going to be the silver bullet in making you a success. They're going to be a piece of it. And if they can make your life a little bit easier, then that's kind of what they're there for.
Great. Well, I think that's I think it's a wrap on that. Thank you guys very much for contributing to this. I think there's a lot of good nuggets of information, and yeah, if there's any resources, actually in the chat, there's been resources throughout been listed. So I think Wavelength may put those all together in a document or something like that. So they'll communicate that to you after this, if that's put together. And yeah, hope everybody has a great evening. I just want to thank, on behalf of Wavelength, she's been mentioned multiple times here, but Angie DeMedeiros for being a part of this. She helped get the panelists on board and give me some interesting information, all of that. So thank you, Angie. Also, thank you to the Wavelength board and Universal Music for helping organize the panel. And that is thanks from the Wavelength team. And just have a few short outros here. Overall, thank you to everybody who attended. I hope it was a benefit to you. And as I mentioned, I think Wavelength is planning to do some more of these in the future. So definitely sign up for their email list, or they'll be in touch via this in the for future panels. Wavelength, you can find on socials, all socials at Wavelength Music, and they want to let you know about their Halloween party, virtual party, that is. It's a virtual haunted house and Halloween party on October the 29th. There'll be performances by Bonnie Trash, Lucro Kuta, and the Diet Ghosts. So keep an eye out for that from Wavelength. And thank you to Dijah, Dina, and Harrison for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.